Welcome back to the Beyond the Locker Room, podcast, the show that gives you the raw, unfiltered truth about sports, and especially this week we're going to discuss the NFL as always, Week 3. This week we're not waiting around for the final whistle on this one to call a season over for two teams. We're talking about two teams that, despite what their coaches and what their PR departments may say, I think they're already done as far as what I've seen this year. That's right. In Week 3, I'm calling it. We are officially putting the Miami Dolphins and the Dallas Cowboys seasons in the books. It's a wrap, folks. Let's talk about it next. So let's start with the Miami Dolphins, the Fins. The offseason buzz was deafening. We heard all about the electric offense. We know, it has the great reputation, and I think it put up 70 points against Denver one season. The speed of Tyreek Hill and Waddle are fantastic to watch, and they're supposed, and Tua's taking some leaps forward. There's no two ways about it. But what's the reality? What are we actually seeing here? The reality is the team that looks really out of sync, and I'll give them credit though. They seem to have marginal improvement each week. They showed some fight against Buffalo, and they overall I didn't think they looked as bad as they did the first couple weeks. Against Buffalo, which is obviously a higher caliber of talent. But the offensive line still has like a turnstile feel to it. And that's not good for a player like Tua, who suffered as many concussions as he's had. The defense is still getting gashed. I mean, it felt like Buffalo could score whenever they wanted to. They kind of throttled down at times and then throttled back up when they needed to. And explosive plays, we were promised that we used to see in the past are like non-existent right now for the team. I don't think there's just a slow start that we're seeing right now, guys. I think right now we're seeing a fundamental issue and potentially a breakdown with the Dolphins. The rest of the AFC is stacked. So if you think of it from that standpoint, 0-3 in the AFC, that's a long way to come back from. With contenders like KC, Baltimore, Buffalo. And then you got surprises like we'll get to the Chargers later on, the Colts. So you're asking for a lot to keep trying to climb back up that hill to get back into things. The season, in my mind, the season is over for that reason for the Fins, because they haven't shown enough yet to see that they could play with any sort of like respectable talent at this point, and I think that's very concerning if you're a Fins fan. And that leads to the next question then. So if they are going to struggle and they don't make the playoffs, for example, and say they have a losing record, and so if that that raises a major question. What's the future of Mike McDaniel? And is he on the hot seat? Now, after an 0-3 start, at some point, there are going to be whispers, and I think the whispers might start happening already. If he's going to be around for next year. The team looks like they've been figured out a little bit, to be honest with you. He's got the offensive schemes that looked so innovative just 2-3 years ago now seem to be pretty plain and seem to be pretty much mundane. How defenses are handling the Dolphins' offense. They work in flashes at times, but they seem to be being countered pretty easily. Now there's another element to all this, and that is owner Stephen Ross, and he's never been a guy that's been that patient. So you have to ask yourself, how much longer will he have patience with this group? He's paid a lot of money to bring these players in. It's a pretty, he has some pretty big time players on here. He's made, he's given the go ahead to have certain trades made, like the Hill trade, to get big time talent in. So he's not looking to kind of wait around. He isn't getting any younger, by the way, too. So he's gonna want to see himself get a championship at some point. And I think, and it's actually funny enough, that's actually, the age part of the owner actually also plays into the other team I'm going to talk about in a second. But that 0-3 start is the kind of thing that can, could potentially light a fire under the owner's seat, but we'll see. But I think the watch is on for McDaniel at the moment. Let's get into the second part. Oh boy, how about them Cowboys? So the Cowboys. You're just getting a raspberry to talk about them. As a Steelers fan, it's difficult to talk about the Cowboys, but it's more fun to talk about them when they're struggling. So I'm sorry Cowboys fans. I'll try to keep it professional, try to keep it corporate. The narrative around this team is as tired as their fans must be of them, to be honest with you at this point. Every year it's the same story, preseason hype, blah 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 blah, Cowboys this, Cowboys that, and an avalanche of media and media attention. And this year was no different after the big trade. And then what ends up happening is a total collapse. We're only in week 3, so they're getting started early this year as far as I'm concerned, folks. And the signs of a failing season are already here. This isn't a team with a bad record, but I think this is a franchise with a bad habit. I think one of the habits they have is overvaluing their talent. They talk about a lot of their players as if they're top of their own positions. We're quite honestly at this point here, there's only a few players. Honestly, I think really there's only one player really I consider to be a guy that's like a top 5 talent at his position, and that's Lamb. Everybody else, Dak at this point, is Dak even a top 10 quarterback at this point? I don't think so. I really don't think he is. Maybe a couple of years ago, definitely gonna make the argument that Dak was a top 10 quarterback. Now, I don't think that's the case. Let's get to what the struggles, what's maybe the biggest reasons for their struggles, and why I think their season's over before it even began. Even though they're 1-2, let's keep this in consideration. The one team they beat was the New York Giants, and Russell Wilson kind of turned back the hands of time and looked like the Seattle Seahawks. Russell Wilson, as a Seahawks fan, I did enjoy those days, obviously, but Russell Wilson shouldn't be looking like that against your defense. I'd put it that way at this stage of his career. And that was at home too, and they had to win that in overtime, folks. In overtime. And they barely pulled that out. So let's go back, let's rewind back to the beginning of the season. So they make the trade, and right now that loss, that trade and the loss of Micah Parsons, I think it's gonna haunt them for the rest of the season. And when you trade a generational talent in Parsons when it comes to pass rushing, you just can't replace that. And maybe in the future with some of these draft picks, they might be able to kind of get some way to clot it. In this case, the bleeding, but I don't think they need a lot of clotting to get that done, because there's a lot of different aspects of this team that are in trouble. So you knew there would be a drop off defensively, but I think I knew that it would be bad, but I didn't think it would even be this bad. The defense looks like Swiss cheese at this point. They can't get pressure, which leaves the secondary exposed, and then therefore, and then the third part is you can't force turnovers. So 3 strikes, you're out, and that means trouble for you defensively, because that means the other side could actually control the tempo. They can move, they can move the ball as they see fit. They can pick on any matchup they want. And right now, and if you can't get off the field, and we'll get to the other side of the ball, which is not helping things either, then you're in trouble. Right now, Parsons put the offense, the coordinators in a serious. That trade put the coordinators in a serious position on trying to get as creative as possible. And I don't think I've seen enough so far to say, that Schottenheimer has the type of acumen yet to get this team where they need to be. So let's flip to the other side of the ball. Because if it wasn't bad enough already, then you find out in this case here during the game, CeeDee Lamb has a high ankle sprain. Yikes. So without their top offensive weapon, what did the boys do now? So the offense was already struggling to find a rhythm, and Dak is without his safety blanket. Let's call it what it is. And I don't know about you, but I find Dak hasn't looked quite the same post the injury. I find that he's not as aggressive, a lot more dinking and dumping. Where is like even when he has good games, you don't feel him out there, if you know what I mean. And I think one of the reasons why is that quite honestly, I'm not sure on the stats, but from my the eye test, I don't think he takes off with the ball anymore in the run to actually make that actually part of his game and a weapon. Do the age, do the injuries, do the fear, I don't know what it is, but like that aspect of his game, I mean, he might as well at this point in his career essentially be Kirk Cousins. Like it's just drop back passes for the most part, and now they're relying on someone the receiving core they have remaining. And George Pickens leading the group. Pickens is an outstanding talent, except for a Steelers guy. But if you're depending on George Pickens as your first option, you are in trouble. And I think this team's entering into a state of chaos because I think a couple more losses and it's going to get ugly in Big D real fast. And once again, similar to things when it comes to ownership, as it is with the Dolphins, you have a cranky, at times cranky owner that's getting up there in age. You would like to see another championship, and that's where you get in the dangerous positions where you start making panic moves. And I said it then the trade happened with Micah Parsons when I did the first podcast of the year for the start of the season. I said that I felt that was an emotional trade, and now I think it's coming back to bite Jerry and Stephen Ross as well too. So lots to see here. Watch this space. I think both of those teams are right now. They're in the danger zone. They're in the danger zone, but I personally think that their seasons are done, even though the record is 1-2 for Dallas. 1-2 for Dallas. I know it seems like that, but just so you can see from the inklings of what you're seeing and the symptoms, it doesn't look good. And for Miami in the AFC, 0-3, good luck to you boys. All right. A few things to get off my chest for this week. I just want to mention Caleb Williams, by the way, speaking of Dallas, that game against Chicago, he looked great. So I just want to give props to the young man. Him and head coach. I think the head coach and him are getting on the same page. They ran a few more actual scripted runs for him, which I think was a good thing. They kind of loosened things up for him and loosened up the defense. That they have to be aware of that. So that's good. Just one thing, man. Just, hey, learn how to slide a little bit there, Caleb, man. You took a few hits there. You don't want to be doing that too often, man. But overall, man, he looked pretty sharp, and that flea flicker, my goodness, man. First in the corral the ball, which was a horrible flick back. That was bad. But my goodness, the pass was fantastic. And you get to see the arm strength of Caleb Williams, and kind of like what we all came to see. And he delivered. For the hometown, for the home fans, and for friends of mine, or a friend of mine is a Bears fan. I know they've been waiting for like a star quarterback for eons. So for that fan base, that's at least something to look forward to, and they should be happy about that. I'm gonna head a little further. I'm gonna head a little west, and just discuss quickly. Well, actually, you know what? I'm gonna head south first. Give some shouts to Baker, man. OU in the building. Baker Mayfield, the Bucks 3-0, and Baker, man, he's been steely with it, man. Like when it comes to clutch time, he's been delivering. Coming back and get the job done 3 straight weeks in a row. They look sharp. They're finding ways to win. Tampa's a sneaky team right now. They're not getting as much publicity, but if the last week of January and the first week of February, and you see the Buccaneers in the Super Bowl, I wouldn't be surprised. Just saying it right now. Just gotta watch the Bucks. They are playing well. Mayfield's got command of that offense. The defense is is strong, and and they're getting coached up well. So watch out for the Tampa Bay. They're a dark horse to watch for, and they're looking good so far. Now I will head west, just to give a little shout out. I gave a little bit of shout out the first week of the season. When the Chargers played the Chiefs, I'm not down on Justin Herbert, and my thing is I just don't like when folks give folks accolades that they haven't really deserved yet in my mind. He's like, oh, he's top 5. He's like, he hasn't even won a playoff game yet, guys. And he choked away the one playoff game he had. Like guys, stop with that. And any big game I've ever seen him in, I don't see a lot coming from him as far as big game play. But I will say this though. He was fantastic this weekend, and maybe with Harbaugh's coaching and belief in him, we're now seeing him turn the corner. It's still early. It's still the Chargers, so keep that in mind, folks. Keep that in mind. Strange things happens with that franchise. So I'll wait, but I am just saying. I'm just saying I like what I see so far. Let's put it that way. I like what I see. So I'm gonna leave it there, and I think there's a lot of interesting stories. I'll hold back my Steelers take for a little while. I want to see a little bit more before I get into the black and gold just yet. But that's all the time we have right now. Thanks for listening once again to the Beyond the Locker Room podcast. Remember to like, subscribe, and of course, leave a comment or a review. And you can follow me on all my social media platforms, X, Blue Sky, and Facebook. And hey, don't forget, check me out, man, and the guys in this case, Coach Roach, Kenyon, weekly on Basketball Rewind. Hoop season's getting around, coming soon, so Lots of WNBA stuff going on. Great playoffs there. So check what we got to say about that. And until next time, guys, keep it locked. Peace.